俺のターン。ドロー。俺のマジックカードの宣言枚数は4枚。
何？手札1枚で4枚の宣言をするだと？
そうだ。その4枚で貴様を葬る。
本当に引けるとでも
1枚目。俺は手札より命削りの宝札を発動。手札を5枚になるようにドローし、5ターン後全ての手札を墓地に置く。
何
？2枚目。手札からマジックカード魂の解放を発動。互いの墓地から5枚までカードを選択し、ゲームから除外する。俺は墓地よりカオスエンペラードラゴンを取り除く。3枚目。手札から魔法再生を発動。手札のマジックカード2枚を墓地に送り、自分の墓地からマジックカード1枚を手札に加える。4枚目。ライフポイントを2000払い、手札より次元融合を発動。互いに除外されたモンスターをそれぞれの場へ可能な限り特殊召喚する。
愚かな。ブリュンヒルデの攻撃力はドラゴンの数だけアップする。ブリュンヒルデの攻撃力に太刀打ちできるドラゴンなど。
エメラルドドラゴンでブリュンヒルデを攻撃。
What the fuck? Welcome back to the Drive Check, the series where I take a look at one deck from each set and provide my take on it. Give an example deck list and show off a few playtest games, and finally give my last opinions on the deck. But first, if you aren't subscribed yet, why not? Subscribe now and I promise that you will always mill 7 clean with Hendrina and Agony. But first, a message from our sponsor, SBTCG, where you go for your Bushiroad card game needs. Festival Collection 2021 singles are now out on Strictly Broken TCG. Did you get your trial deck grade 3 SPs yet? I sure did, and I made sure to use the discount code SBTCG ITSTOKUTV at checkout for 8% off, so make sure you do too. And now, let's get back to the deck list. As always, we'll be starting off this episode of the Drive Check with the deck recipe. Let's start at the bottom actually this time around. So, we've got our ride line, Dream Nibbling, Rancor Chain, Husk Dragon, and a copy of Zorga in our ride line. Easy enough to say, Rancor Chain and Husk Dragon is a nice guaranteed 2-card engine to dig through your deck as well as to fill up your drop zone and to scope your hand for orders. Obviously, we're going to play 4 heals because realistically speaking, this deck does not have a lot for countercharge, and hitting a good heal trigger is effectively a countercharge 1. We're playing 4 of the fronts rather than 3 and 8 crits because guard value in the current stages of this game are so important that getting that extra 5k guard value off of these new front triggers is so important. We're going to play 7 crits because that's how we pretty much win the game with these big swings that we make off of our orders, as well as the 1 copy of the over trigger. We're going to play 4 copies of the Perfect Guard, that is needless to say as well, and now we get into the real juice of the deck list. The ratios and the card choices have a lot to work on. I will let it be known that this deck is very heavily RNG based. A lot of your game is decided on your first few mills off of your Hendrinas. If you're able to get good mills, mill off orders, mill off good units to call, your game is going to go very smooth because not only does that fill up your drop zone with very good high quality targets, it keeps your deck thin and trigger compressed, which means your swings, your damage checks will have a higher chance to be yellow cards, which then makes the power differential between your deck and their deck effectively higher. We are still choosing to play copies of the Adamantis. This is still one of the craziest grade 1s in Stoichea, being able to recur itself many times through Zorga skill, being able to recur off of Agony, Spiritual Body Condensation, to basically just have an 8k booster on the board, as well as to donate 5k to another rearguard. This in conjunction with Fleet Eater will make really nice magic numbers alongside Nectar to try and go for those big 60, 70k crit sharks per game. We're playing 3 copies of Headhunter. Ideally, in a game, you're going to be wanting to play an order every turn, which means Headhunter is effectively always 13k. Be it a booster or an attacker, 13k will always hit their Vanguard. 13k boosting that 15k based shark alongside any buffs you have from Adamantis, Nectar, Rejection. All those add up to become really big numbers, which help make that shark win con. This slot is a slot that I've been tinkering with a lot. I'm not sure if I want to run some of the Blitz order, Ghost Chase, if I want to up the counts on Agony, Spiritual Body Condensation to make sure I do have an order to always play. Zorga right now is in that weird state where you're screwed if you play too much order, because then you get bricked and these orders don't have shield values except for Ghost Chase. And alternatively, you're screwed if you don't play enough orders, because come turns where you don't have an order to play in hand, your tempo will be greatly diminished, because then you'll go from being this high value spell casting deck to just being call one, swing twice, pass. At the moment, I am running the dolls just to be able to recycle some orders back into the drop zone. Sometimes comes into effect when I just need to reuse Nectar more than once. If I've already had it once in drop, I've already bound it for Alchemagic, but I need to use it again for the turn, I'll call down the Beauty Sleeves, put it back into drop, use my order from hand to fuse with it again. That way I'm able to give the Fleet Eater another 15k minimum and a crit. Right now we are on 3 copies of Spiritual Body Condensation. Like I said, the numbers of orders, the ratios of orders, the numbers of everything that's like outside of the core of Zorga, which is basically just like the 4 Hendrinas, the 4 PGs. Everything here is kind of super flexible to a player's liking. I've been enjoying having this at 3 in comparison to set 1, where since the game was a bit slower, I want to say, or like since power mattered a lot more in set 1, Zorga was able to just basically do Hendrina, 4 copies of Spiritual Body Condensation, 4 copies of Agony, just to have this like crazy value train going where Agony, Condensation every turn to be able to get 3 cards for trading 2 cards on the board. You're just able to value out your opponent, and hopefully they would lose before you decked out. Now, with decks all of a sudden being a bit stronger, with like very little support, like we're looking at you, Orphist, with like your new token support, that doesn't happen as much, and you need to basically high roll a bit on the side of things to be able to use Nectar to be able to push for game earlier. So that's why for like these like grade 2 attackers, grade 1 units, these orders, the ratios I'm not happy with at the moment, and it needs a lot of testing, but for now, for this video, I think this is a good starting point. So we've got 3 Fleet Eaters. This could jump between 3 and 2 right now, but this is the main win con of your deck. When I envision the winning image of Zorga right now, I'm seeing 2 Fleet Eater columns boosted by both Headhunters. 1 Fleet Eater has the buff from Nectar. We'll swing with that first. They're at 4 damage, so this one will be a lethal. They will have to guard it very heavily. PG, discard 2. We'll swing with Zorga. They will most likely also have to guard this as well. A crit here is game, but also a crit here when they PG it goes to the next Fleet Eater, which then we can use for game. Obviously, the 2 big orders to use on this kill turn is to combine Rejection as well as Nectar to give 3 units 10k, as well as to buff your first Fleet Eater to get that crit walking across kind of gameplay that I'm envisioning with this deck. Our last set of 6 orders: 2 Rejection, 2 Agony, and 2 Nectar. Like I said, these numbers can shuffle back and forth between different ones. We might even cut into Adamantis, cut into Beauty Sleeves to up our order count to make sure we're always able to Alchemagic. But like I said, sometimes that will brick your hand, and all you'll have in hand are orders, which then makes you also unplayable. So honestly, I'm pretty sure all the Zorga mains out there are still trying to find that perfect ratio. For the sake of a basic baseline, I'm doing 2-2-2. This basically says that 1 copy of each one gets used twice because of Alchemagic, as long as I'm able to find another copy. That's basically the general idea I had for the deck. These are my card choices and my card ratios. Absolutely, I encourage you guys to drop a comment down below letting me know what you've been doing for Zorga. That way, you guys, the Zorga mains, myself, we can all bump heads and try and find that perfect ratio for orders and units for Zorga. Now, let's get into the games. Our first game is against Barrow Magnus. We are on the play. We will mulligan 3 to draw 3 new cards and give that deck a good shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And let the game begin. We will draw for turn and discard to ride into Ranker Chain, using a skill to draw 2 and to drop an order, and we'll pass the turn to the Barrow Magnus player. He will ride into Deep Sonicer, using a skill to Soul Charge 1, as well as call Gungam to Soul Charge another. Swinging out of Vanguard, we'll guard that, and we'll take the first Vanguard swing for a crit in the damage. For our turn, we'll discard to draw into Husker Dragon here, grabbing back our Tinder experience, also known as Grief, Despair, and Rejection. I'll call down Hendrina to mill 3 and swing Vanguard and Hendrina to face. On his turn, he'll ride into Electro Spartan, and to call down Selfish Engraver as well as Crimson Expeller, using the Engraver to swing at my Hendrina, which I opt to not guard Engraver with the Soul Charge. He swings with Expeller for another Soul Charge, and I'll guard this for a 5 to guard, and then with the Vanguard, which I will no guard. Back to our turn, we'll ride into Zorga and use its skill to call Hendrina back and to mill another 3. We'll then use Cursed Souls of Agony and Alchemagic it with our drop zone this dude hot on order, so I guess we'll fuse it with Nectar of Sensations. Resolving an order, we'll call Adamantis and the PG off the mill 4 here. And we'll give both of those 5k each, and then resolve Nectar to give Mantis 15k and a crit. We'll swing at the Vanguard for 44k and a juicy crit, which unfortunately for us gets guarded with an overtrigger from hand. We'll then swing with Zorga to face and get a heal trigger. Very well timed. That will end our turn. They'll start their turn by riding Barrow Magnus and using Electro Spartan's skill to Soul Charge into Filtered Hand. Now at 9 soul, he will use from hand Crawl You Insects to get another Soul Charge, as well as to buff the Expeller 20k and to draw a card back. Going into attack, since he's not at 15 soul yet, he will use Barrow's skill to draw 1 and to gain 10k and a crit, which I will PG, discarding the Rejection Order, which I wasn't so sure at the time which was the best card to discard. But I will guard the Engraver and take the crit from Expeller, so I have more Counterblast to play with on my turn. Back to our turn, we will call the Headhunter from hand to reduce our Alchemagic by 1 Counterblast, and then use Zorga to call Hendrina and to not mill 3, but sack her off immediately and then combine her with Agony and Rejection to make a large board to try and push our opponent. We will spread our 10k to Adamantis, the PG, and to Zorga, and Agony will give 5k to the trigger and Hendrina called off of it. Going into attacks, we'll start with Hendrina boosted by Headhunter for a nice 28k to Vanguard, then we'll swing with Zorga, hitting that crit, and our Adamantis then swings for 44k once again. Passing it back, our opponent will start his turn with a Brother's Soul from hand. This card allows him to Soul Charge 2 new cards from the top of his deck, as well as to call Curtis to Soul Charge another 2. Using 2 Counterblasts, he will buff his front row by 5k, and then he'll swing 15k to Van with Expeller, which I'll intercept with Hendrina. I'll guard the other attack, and then I will take the Barrow Magnus attack, as I don't really have that much cards in hand to guard everything with. So he will call Deep Sonicer as well as Selfish Engraver. He'll get the heal trigger, which I was not expecting and I'm not happy about, as this kind of puts the damage disparity at a strange place, as I am forced to take the Engraver as well. Back to our turn. Remember 2 turns ago when I ditched that order for the PG? I sure wish I didn't now. I could have had a really strong turn if I didn't, but either way, we'll call Hendrina to the front, as well as using Zorga's skill to call Beauty pulling the sleeve, sending back 2 orders to gain 10k and being able to hit Vanguard. I still have some fronts in the deck, so I will swing with Vanguard first. He will guard for 2 to pass. Well, how about an overtrigger instead? We'll put 100 million onto Zorga to break the guard and hit him to 5 with the crit. Unfortunately, he does hit defensives, and which leaves Hendrina unable to attack. But we'll swing with the Beauty to get another card out of his hand before passing it back. On his turn, he'll call another Curtis and another Expeller. From hand, he will once again use Curtis' skill to boost the front row 5k. His first attack with Curtis, I will guard with 15k, and his next attack with the Expeller, I will guard with Hendrina and the front trigger in hand. On Barrow Magnus' swing, he will suck up the board, and after calling a new front row, I will throw the PG at him. I'll take one of the swings, as he did not get a crit. Even if he did, unless he got double crit, I'd be able to guard everything with the second PG I have in my hand to walk away from his turn fairly unscathed. At this point in the game is already over. He is down to his last card in deck, so regardless what happens on this turn, I'll just try and make the biggest shark boy I can using Fleet Eater as well as Headhunters to boost, combining Resurrection as well as Nectar to make that really big, juicy crit with Shark and Guard Restrict to swing with. He does have enough cards in hand to guard everything in the end. Obviously, I do not swing with my Vanguard as I am also down to my last card. Instead, we will pass the turn to him and he will draw his last card for game. Our second game is against Hexo-Orb Sorceress, and once again, we'll be playing first. With our standard play, we'll ride Ranker Chain and use the skill to draw 2 and to drop an order. On their turn, they'll simply ride up and swing, which we will guard for an overtrigger to pass. On our turn again, we will ride into Husk Dragon to get back our order and call Hendrina from our hand to mill 3, consistent as balls. We'll swing with Vanguard, and they will, unfortunately, defensive trigger on us, which does end our turn right there. On their turn, they will ride up and use Tier Square's effect to draw a card, as well as call an Owain from hand to just swing. He will, at our Vanguard, get a crit on his drive check, and I will, unfortunately, take the heal as my first damage, and then I'll have to intercept the second attack with Hendrina. Back to my turn, we'll ride up into Zorga and summon Hendrina from the drop, as well as sack her for a free usage of Spiritual Body Condensation Alchemagic with Agony. From Condensation, we will call Headhunter, and off the Agony we will mill 4, and unhappily call the PG and the sleeve. I'll immediately resolve the sleeve to gain 5k, become a more formidable attacker, and begin attacks with it. Then, we'll swing with Zorga after, and get the front trigger. Then we'll swing with Headhunter before passing it back to Hexo-Orb. Back to their turn, they will discard to ride into Hexo-Orb Sorceress and use the skill to stack 3 and decide what goes on first, second, third card on deck. And then decide to use Diamond Sorceress instead anyways. Counterblast 1 to discard a card, and from the top 2 cards of their deck, call down the Lepisto as well as another Diamond Sorceress. Beginning attacks, they will swing Vanguard to Vanguard, which I will no guard and he does not get any triggers. His next swing will be with Owain boosted by the Sorceress, which I will guard with a trigger, as well as I will guard this attack with a front trigger, I believe. We'll take our turn back and we will Persona Ride and top deck into an order to use her Alchemagic. Sometimes you're just the best player at the game. We will pull the Headhunter back and Counterblast 1 to call the Shark out to the front. As I do only have 15 in drop zone, I will call Adamantis over sleeves to ensure that I'll have 15 when I bind an order with Alchemagic. This will give our Shark a 15k and a crit, as well as now we will resolve Soul Condensation to call back Husk Dragon and give it a 5k from the skill, as well as another 5k from its own skill. Going straight into attacks, we will start our attacks with Husk Dragon, which he does take. Then we will swing with Zorga to face, which he does guard with, I believe, a 1 to pass, or a 2 to pass, due to his defensive trigger here. We get no triggers, but we will swing with the Shark and use its skill to try and end the game there. But he does have the PG, so at least we are able to get 3 cards out of his hand with this one swing. Passing it back to Hexo-Orb, they will Persona Ride and use her skill to stack the crit from hand on top of the deck. They only have 1 Counterblast open though, so I'm not too afraid of Lepisto here. They'll start attack with Lepisto, which I'll take and get the defensive. On Hex's attack, I'll throw my Overtrigger out as a guard, meaning even with a triple trigger, he can't break it, save for an Overtrigger. But he unironically does triple trigger here, and in conjunction with the bonus 30k from Hexo-Orb skill and the 10k from Owain, Owain will end up swinging at us with 2 crit and 98k to phase, and I just don't have enough guard in my hand for that, and that is game 2. Our third and final game is against Prison. And look at us, we're on the play again. Sometimes we're just better. And oh no, even after mulligans, no orders in hands. But off of Ranker's Chain, we do draw the Nectars, which we will immediately drop to resolve his skill. On their turn, they will ride up into blue and unfortunately have to call a heal trigger from hand to tap for the prison. They will swing at Vanguard, which I'm seeing that their over trigger is gone now from that soul charge. I'll guard for a no pass. Going to Hush Dragon, I'll grab the abs back and mill 3 off of... Oh no, we also mill their over trigger. Well, I guess all's fair, all fair. So, we'll swing with Hush Dragon. We do get the crit, and we'll pass the power over to Hendrina, which he reluctantly guards with another 15. We'll pass it back, which he will ride into pink here, and rip a card from our hand with her skill. I'll give him the Headhunter in hand, but what's this? He also has, from hand, Turquoise, I believe, and as well as the 24-hour coverage, which will also rip another card from her hand. I thought we were playing Vanguard, not Gishki hand loops in Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. He'll swing with Vanguard, and he'll also get a crit on his drive check. We'll take 2. Unfortunately, our heal does not go off once again, and a Turquoise will attack, which I will reluctantly guard with another 15k. Not doing so great on hand, so we will have to discard to ride into Zorga. Discarding a card that we would have liked to keep. We'll sack off Hendrina and call it back to try and mill for another order. We don't get an order! Oh my god. My kingdom for an order. We have to make a really weak play here, which is just to use a counterblast to call our cards out of prison. Included with Turquoise's negative 5k buff from cards just called out of prison this turn. I don't swing for great numbers, and we'll just have to swing it back to him. He'll ride into Seraph Snow, using her skill to counterblast 1 and to imprison 2 more of our units. He'll use another copy of 24-hour coverage, which we will give another copy of our Headhunter to. Going to attacks, he will just swing first with Vanguard, which we will have to take as our hand is not good. Our hand is just not good right now. He gets 2 grade 1s as well as another copy of Seraph Snow for Persona Ride next turn. Not doing so great on... Hey, okay, nice. We got an order off for Hendrina this turn. We're able to play the game. We'll minus 5k to the units called out of prison, unfortunately. Well, the best thing we can do now is to use Nectar from hand after sacking off Hendrina. We'll use Nectar from hand and then combine it with Agony to give 15k and a crit to the Headhunter, as well as call a copy of Shark and the PG. Not much else we can do except to try and recycle our unit's powers back to base and go into attacks. We'll attack with a crit first. I'm happy to see that he actually does not have enough to guard this, so he will take both. No defensive triggers, also good to see. I know his cards in hand is a grade 3 and 2 grade 1s. He will give me the 2 grade 1s for a 1 to pass. Honestly, at this point, I wasn't exactly sure if I was going to get that 1 to pass because I was out many triggers, but hey, we get those front triggers, and we get 2 of them. That's why they were called Yellow Card Vanguard. We'll swing with our Shark for 6 damage, and he will not heal. So, we won 2 out of 3 games, but the wins did not feel very good. But hey, a win's a win. And sometimes that's all that matters. Let's run over the strengths and weaknesses. The strengths. 1. Rancor Chain and Hush Dragon in the ride line are a crazy good advantage engine. A +2 in your ride line helps you dig for the orders you need to get them into cycle. 2. Nectar and Rejection all come magic together for an endgame are crazy strong. Trading 1 card in hand for a minimum of 45k to board strength is insane, especially when one of your attackers asks for a minimum of 3 cards. 3. Hendrina and Condensation and Agony is a crazy strong advantage engine. In the grand scheme of things, this reads Counterblast 1 from Zorga's skill to revive Hendrina, then sack her, and then a card from hand to +3 to your board. And then the weaknesses of the deck. 1. It is inherently gated by player skill, the skill being how lucky you are. A lot of games are swung by how your first mills go off of Hendrina, and it swings heavily. When you mill off high quality cards off of Hendrina and Agony, not only is your selection better for targets, your deck is now higher trigger compressed for the late game. When you mill off triggers off of Hendrina and Agony, your selection is trash. Not only that, your opponent has less triggers in deck to fear about. That's what I mean by it swings heavily. When it goes good, it goes really good, and when it goes bad, it goes really bad. 2. The deck is prone to bricking. Having a playstyle heavily revolving around cycling orders you always want to have at least one order in hand and one order in drop zone. When you're only adding 3 to 4 cards from the top of your deck to hand each turn, you're not always guaranteed to stay in this cycle. It's strange that on the bell curve of having orders in hand, 0 and 10, let's say, you want to be somewhere in the middle, as orders are unfortunately once per turn, and having too many in hand might mean that you just have 0 guard. And 3. Lack of resource refunding. There is soul reduction and counterblast reduction through Hendrina and Headhunter, but outside of healing, you have no real way to actually countercharge. This means that there is a defined upper limit on the number of Zorga spirit calls you can use, rejection orders you can use, and it's why I opted to run a list of orders that went soft on counterblast usage to respect this fact. In summary, Zorga is a high-risk, high-reward deck that, at the moment, although it's not the best deck in the format, is heavily rewarding to play. This deck is probably a best example of lean engines chaining to each other to form a well-oiled machine. From Ranker Chain and Husk Dragon into the next function being Hendrina, Condensation, and Agony, into the final function being Fleet Eater, Nectar, and Rejection. That's your well-oiled machine that this deck tries to do. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, as the output what you're looking for isn't always going to happen, because sometimes you're not able to control the input you're trying to put into the function. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the deck list. Do, in the comments down below, let me know what you thought about the deck list, your opinions on it, your version of the deck list, cards that you think that I should be including, cards you think that I should cut, and give me a good reason why. Anyways, this has been Toku from Yellow Card Vanguard. Toku out.